It is 7:01, and I'm calling the meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is our land acknowledgement that Val will be giving. So go ahead, Val.
Yes. The CDP Senior Caucus wishes to honor the homeland of the First Nations people of California. The Senior Caucus acknowledges that the land where we live, work, and enjoy is the unceded territory of the First Nation tribal people since time began. The Senior Caucus wants to offer recognition and respect to counter the doctrine of discovery with the true story of the original tribal people who are here, and to support the reconciliation of government-to-government relations of these sovereign nations. We are surrounded by their traditional ancestral territory, and we must strive to understand the spiritual knowledge First Nations people carry. Their strong cultural values have enabled First Nations resiliency to survive. This was written for us by Redwood Flower from the Sherwood Band Rancheria Band of Pomo.
Okay, thank you very much, Val. Before I go on, I'd just like to recognize that Ruth Carter, our Chair Emeritus, is with us. Welcome, Ruth. And the next thing on the agenda is the quorum check. So, Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum, and I can just give my brief officer report. I just want to mention that Monday was the 88th birthday of Social Security, and
Yes.
those of us in the Senior Caucus have to remember the Democratic Party is the party responsible for Social Security during the New Deal. Also, the Democratic Party is responsible for Medicare under Lyndon Johnson and Obamacare. So we are the party of and by and for seniors. And we need to remind every senior they should vote their interests and they should vote Democrats. The other thing I want to just briefly mention is our agency, Social Security, has been rated as the worst agency to work for in the federal government. We've not had any leadership, and just recently, President Biden nominated Governor Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, to be the Social Security Commissioner. So it's hopeful that he will be able to help get Social Security together and to really ensure that all seniors receive everything that they are due. And I just want to just add, as a member of American Federation of Government Employees, Social Security workers are union workers, and we're part of the House of Labor. So I'm proud to do that. And Hene Kelly, one of our speakers, did come to my office in beautiful East Oakland, California. Okay. So I'd like to welcome everybody, and thank you, Mr. President. We have a quorum today.
Okay, and thank you, Howard. And you might want to adjust your computer or your phone, because all we're seeing is your chin, and there's nothing wrong with your chin, but we'd rather see your.
Okay. Well, the other thing I can say, and I'll mention this to Hene too, is when I was in the Navy, people thought I looked like Jerry Lewis. Now it is Bernie Sanders. And I was supporting him because I wanted to have a side hustle as his double.
That's lovely. He was my boyfriend in college, so
I know he was, and he told me
I
have
like him.
hair.
I'll
we
follow
need
you
to move
anywhere.
on. As much as I love this conversation, we need to move on. And it's time now for the officer reports. And we'll go in the order that we have it listed on our blasts. And that makes me next. And my officer report will be very brief. We are thrilled to death that our officers are intact, and we have lots of plans for the next now year and a half. And I've mentioned that before. We've had the disadvantage of the of CADEM is doing the recertifications of the caucuses, and it's been made overly complex. They have all caucuses totally rewriting their bylaws. And that's taken away from our real plan of covering all senior issues. But hopefully someday that will be done and we can get on with what we've planned for. I also will say that in November, we will be having a meeting in person at the convention in Sacramento. Will probably also be hybrid, but if you can, please make it to that meeting. It should be really good, and it's going to feature a topic of seniors and technology, or maybe I should rephrase that as seniors versus technology. So that's my report. Next up, we have Dottie Smith, who I don't think is here. No, she's not. So we'll skip Dottie for now. She's our vice chair of Central. Next up is our vice chair South of Janine. So you want to give your report, Janine?
Hi, everyone. My report is I am ready for Visalia. So, yes, I don't know, maybe a show of hands on who's going to be able to make it out there so that we can meet in person. Okay, good.
Yeah. So far, it looks like 4 of us. Okay, no. All right. Well, good. Let me add that we're going to do a lunchtime get together like we did in Los Angeles. So look for signs outside of the, when the Saturday morning general session ends, we'll be out there with signs pointing out where we're going to meet. We'll just sit. It'll be very informal. So anything else, Janine? Okay, I take it.
That's it. I think we had a great meeting today. So
okay, yeah, we really do need to get to it. Next up, we have Carol.
Hi. Let's see if I can talk and be seen at the same time. Hi. So for my treasurer's report, our balance right now is $7,519.09. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carol. I appreciate the brevity of that. And in case you didn't guess, Carol is our treasurer. She used to be our communications person.
And I was treasurer back in 2013 as well. So things have changed a little bit.
Okay. Next up would be Howard, except he already gave his report. So Angelica, who is our director of communications, do you have a report?
Good evening, everyone. Not much to report. I will share that I'm happy to take on this position, and I moved on from our serving as your treasurer, and I'm just focused mostly on our internal communications, our workflows, and I will be giving some attention to our social media accounts, which haven't, I guess, had much, been given much focus. And so I'm hoping to engage with more people there. Thank you.
Okay. It's not on our agenda, but I see that Andrew Lockman's hand is up, and he asked if he could give a very brief DNC report. We are ahead of schedule, believe it or not. So if is that what you had in mind, Andrew?
Yeah, I also like to recognize Susie, Shannon, my fellow DNC member here as well, and want to recognize her and her great leadership with the Poverty Council. So hi, Susie. And hopefully for those of you who will be in Visalia, we have a reception on Saturday from 4 to 5:45 to get to meet all 20. We have 20 DNC members. Many of them, if not most, will be there. So it's a chance for those of you who are new, because 100 members of the executive board are new this time. And we would love to get to know you all and what we do. you've seen my reports in the regions before, and there hasn't been much of a development, except for to say that the convention is continuing to staff up, and so is the campaign. And we've seen what happened in Ohio is a sign that even Republican states are fed up with Republicans and their subversion of democracy, and we're going to keep fighting for that, to make sure that we're protecting that democracy, protecting Social Security, protecting reproductive choice, protecting education, our environment, etc. But I urge many of you who haven't already done it to consider running to be a convention delegate. It is a blast, and this will be my 9th convention. So it'll be a lot of fun. And be sure to catch the DNC report with Derek Devermont and Rhodesia Ransom, who is the local DNC member. It's great. We've got someone from the Central Valley who will be giving that report. So I don't think I'm missing anything else too critical there. A bunch of us are meeting with the chair tomorrow, just as he's going to update on some stuff with us, and we'll report that once we have that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Let's see. Next up is our committee reports that we scheduled to start at 7:30. So we are ahead of schedule, which makes me very happy because I was concerned about that. So our first committee reports is the platform committee.
Right. I'm Val Mahowski. I'm also the Northern Vice President or Vice Chair. And Dottie Smith and I decided that we needed a committee to review the senior plank of the California platform. No, the platform is something that we tell every candidate, whether they're running for the school board, for supervisor, for Congress. Every candidate must know the platform and agree to it. So it's a very important issue. And so we started this ad hoc committee, and the senior plank of the California platform. The senior plank was modified in 2021 by Ruth Carter, and she did a great job on it. And we opened it up to people to join the committee if they would like to. And we got one person that asked to join, and that was Nadine Perun-Kane. And so she gave us what she was interested in, which is funding for older adult school classes. I don't know if you remember, but about 4 years ago, they decided that seniors could not take classes more than a certain period of time. So if you were in a physical education or a weaving class or a writing class, you weren't eligible to belong to it for more than a couple semesters. And so she put together a section that supports adult education and lifelong learning by advocating for the funding of older adult education throughout the state, and proclaims the advantages of providing our aging population with opportunities for mental stimulation and socialization for the older adult community. And it recognizes the funding of these programs is necessary to fulfill the goals of the California Master Plan on Aging. Okay, so if you're interested in the platform and what the senior platform looks like, you can find that on our website, the website of the California Democratic Party. And tomorrow, Friday, at 7 o'clock, they're going to be talking about the plank of the senior plank of the California Democratic Party. It'll be mixed in with other things. So if you're interested, just show, and you're down there in Visalia, just show up at the meeting, at the platform meeting, and say you're interested in the senior plank. And maybe you'll get to meet Nadine. She said she was going to be there. And Dottie Smith, our central vice chair, will also be there. That's the end of my report. Thank you. Welcome to you all.
Thank you. And next up is our legislation committee report.
Okay, and actually there is a question in the chat for Val, if you wanted to answer that.
Is it what classes, Val? There are lots of classes at community colleges that offer classes. So can you let me know what classes people can't take? I'm on that plank. That's Dottie Lemieux who asked that question.
Right.
Yeah, hi Val, that's me. I wasn't sure what you meant about, I kind of got garbled my question, but what classes you're referring to? Where are these classes? Because are they some kind of state run classes or what?
So we will be having a special meeting for the platform committee in which I will answer those questions. And meanwhile, I'll take the questions and answer them in private. Okay.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Back to the legislation committee.
Okay, hi there, Angelica again. So back on July 22nd, our caucus members voted to submit a position request on AJR4, which is authored by Pilar Chavo. And we went ahead and our caucus did submit a position request, and we weren't the only body to submit for AJR4. And I will just report that AJR4 has been referred to the Rules Committee, and so it will not be considered and voted upon this weekend. And that's all I have to share.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to move into I don't know what you call the main portion of our meeting. And first up is the California Alliance for Retired Americans. And I think one of our officers is going to introduce them.
Right. Hene Kelly, I believe, is a retired teacher. Is that correct?
40 years.
And she was very active in the San Francisco Teachers Association, both active and retired. She's a legislative director for the California Alliance for Retired Americans, and she's a longtime activist in the Labor Caucus and the Disability Caucus. This is a woman that always is involved and always very full of very interesting things to say. So here you go, Hene, you're on.
All right. Well, I am reporting about CARA, but I'll just tell you a few other things. I'm a regional director, and if anybody there knows what a regional director is,
That's right.
It's a wonderful job. You don't get paid for it, and the only time anybody knows your name is when you mess up. So I've done that for about 10 or 12 years, and it's really wonderful because I get to work with the counties around me and all of the clubs in those counties. So that's a really good thing. But right now, I'm glad that we just talked a little bit about legislation, because this year CARA followed about 100 bills. And what we also did is we had 10 bills that were our priorities. That's an awful lot for people to do. And the first one, of course, was AJR4. And basically, AJR4 still has a chance. It has to be passed by September 1st. I think it will be. And I think that's very, very, very important. The next one was AB751, and it was an elder abuse thing that we had brought up last year and couldn't get it through, but we have it chaptered already, which I think is great. The next one was an appropriation bill, AB 449. That's a hate crimes bill. And that's a very important bill because what we have found is that people with disabilities and seniors, there are no rules for hate crimes. And so we are working on getting that done. We have been working for 2 years. It has gotten all the way through, except it hasn't had that final vote. So we hope it will happen. The next bill is a Wiener bill that he tried last year, and he tried again this year, and it is a climate corporation data accountability. It is not really anything that's going to hurt anybody, but what it does is that all of these corporations will have to turn in a report about how much energy they use. And the cost of it and everything like that. So I think that's a really important one. We also have another Wiener bill, which is SB 77. That is the Unified Healthcare Finance, and that has gotten through. It will be in the Senate docket before September 1st. This was a really hard one because what is happening is that the California Nurses Association is going to do a bill this coming year, and that bill will be all about getting Medicare for all, etc. What his bill is completely different, but it's a very important thing. What it does is set up a way to ask for waivers, and we need that. So that will put in all of those things that you need if you're going for single payer or Medicare for all. So that if the second year bill from the nurses passes and this bill has passed, we will be able to really go ahead and work on single payer. I think is really great. Then the next one is holding banks that accountable, and that's a pretty good thing. That's a 2-year bill. We have a bunch of 2-year bills. AB 1286 will stop dangerous, it says it is the Stop Dangerous Pharmacies Act. It mandates reporting of medication errors, and it helps pharmacists to do the job they want to do. SB 278 is holding banks accountable. So now we've got holding the pharmacy, the whole thing with drugs accountable, the whole thing with the banks. That is extremely important for seniors. We have the next bill is another Hene bill, IHSS bargaining, changing the IHSS bargaining from counties to the state. So it will be the state that we will work with. And we think that we will get a much better accountability and help IHSS workers and help people that use IHSS. So that's kind of what we're working on there. Now, how many of you are members of CARA? Anybody here member of CARA? I see some hands. You know, CARA is 20 years old this year. We have worked for 20 years. We have passed a lot of bills. The thing that's changed with us now is that legislators come to us and ask us to support their bills. And that has been happening in the past 5 years. So I'm very excited about that. And they come before us and talk about their bills and that shows a little power for seniors and people with disabilities. The thing is that we're having a 20th anniversary. And I don't know if any of you have joined and are going to be coming to that, but it is wonderful. What I will do after when I speak, I will put in the information about that. We are also going to have take our legislation to everybody and have something we haven't done in about 3 or 4 years. We are going to go and make sure that to tell the governor to sign our bills. And that's very important to all of you. There is a new bill that has just come up, and I will put its number in the chat. And that is a bill that we have decided we will back, and it is a bill about voting accessibility. And one of the things that we are saying that every polling place should have an area where a person can park, somebody comes out and they can vote without going in. And that's curbside voting. And I know some counties have it, but most of them just do not do it. And so we are doing that because there are people that like to come out and vote on the day of voting, but they have a hard time getting into where they vote. So if they're having a hard time, there'll be somebody outside and that person will go back, get the ballot and come and allow the person to vote. So that's something new and that's very, very exciting. But what you really wanted to know about was what we do, especially in the Central Valley, about getting seniors to vote for their own self-interest. The problem with some people is that they say Republicans are conservative, so they will conserve our Medicare and Social Security. Do I hear laughter there? There should be laughter, or maybe crying, because they don't. So what CARA does, and it's interesting, we do not take sides. We call people. That's the main thing we do, is we have a group of people that calls people in the Central Valley and starts out by, hi, I'm a senior and I'm interested in what you as a senior needs to get along, to get, age in place, and we don't tell them who to vote for. But we find out what they're interested in and we talk about it. And then we send them the voting record of their Republican assemblyman and senator who have voted against everything that they want. And in the last 2 elections, we have changed 4 to 7% of the vote. We're hoping for 10% of the vote now. And that is what we do. And it's absolutely a wonderful thing. There's somebody right in this group of people that does a lot more than we do to make sure that people vote the right way. And I think she's eating her dinner right now. Her name is Susan Pfeiffer. And I'm going to ask her to put her information in the chat because she is the person that works with the party to do phone banking and almost every other thing to get people to vote. So she is very, very important. She's a member of CARA and she's a person on the, what is that group that you're on? The
Organizing committee?
The organizing committee, and she's
Yeah.
the most organized person I know. So if you have any questions about what we do, and if you want to get involved, I'll put everything there in the chat and let you know how you can become a member of CARA if you're not, what you can do to come to our convention. And it's going to be a Zoom or in person, and in person will be in Oakland, but most of the people are doing it Zoom. We will have all of that together. And I just, like to tell you that the reason I have been an officer, first I started in the senior caucus. Now I've been an officer in the disabilities caucus. That's what CARA stands for. And it cares for families, seniors, people with disabilities of all ages. So I hope that I've given you some ideas and told you what we're doing. And if you have questions, I could answer them. If you don't have questions, I can go back to sleep.
Yeah, or if you do have questions, raise your electronic hand. Okay.
Anybody?
I think you covered it so well that nobody has any questions left. The question I had is how can we join CARA, but you're going to put that in.
I'm going to put that in the you just go to the CARA website and you can join CARA. And if you go to the thank you. If you go to the CARA website, you will also see something else. What's called Fabulous Friday Forums. We have people from all over the United States coming and speaking at these forums. We have trainings on the forums. We talk about legislation. We have the people who write the legislation come and talk about it. And we copy all of those so that anybody can see them at any time. And we do this at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. So I see that there is somebody has a question. Sophia?
Hi, good evening. Good to see you. I put an article in the chat. I really hope you read it. You're a great critical thinker. I always admire it, so I know access to information. Hopefully I can influence to rethink your position on 770.
Yeah.
Because that article shares a lot. I know where you're coming from. And I think
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think I know the article you're talking about. And basically, we need both of these bills. It's a shame they didn't come out at the same time. And that really is a problem. But I will read that again, and I'll get back to you. Susan.
Am I? Yeah, I'm unmuted. Hene, thank you for the shout out. It's the second one today. The first this morning was Nancy Pelosi at an event in San Francisco at a senior center. And a woman came up to me at the end of the meeting and said she works with seniors and she would like to find out about phone banking for them in San Francisco. So it made my day. And so what I'm going to do this weekend is I'm on the organizing committee. I'm one of the co-chairs. And I'm going to ask the CDP about cutting phone bank lists of seniors in the Central Valley and then organizing seniors calling seniors. I know CARA did that last year, but they didn't quite have the technology that the CDP has.
And we did a different thing. We called Republicans and people who are not telling you what they are. And you'll call Democrats and make them vote, and maybe we'll get 15% change.
And by saying I'm a senior on the phone, that may engage them more into talking to someone of their age group. And lastly, I did put in chat, because I am a member of CARA, and that CARA is the most political, non-political group I know.
That
will explain
what it is. Thank you. Is I can't.
Val's up next.
Yeah. I just want to remind people that we have closed caption. So if you need a little help figuring out what people are saying, just go down to CC and it'll give you closed caption at the bottom of your screen. It's very helpful. Thank you.
It is definitely helpful, and that is something that we've made the party do for all the meetings that they have, closed captioning. It's sometimes hard to hear in a big thing, and it's hard to hear here. All right, and is there anybody else who had their hand up? Yes, Carolyn.
Actually, you skipped Barbara Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara
had her hand up
Wilson.
first. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you so much for your presentation, Hene. I just want to, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, so please forgive me if I'm out of order. But when we talk about legislation, I just wondered if everyone on the call is aware of the crisis that is affecting licensed boarding care homes.
Oh, yes.
And the reason I'm raising it is because, of course, they're closing. Shelters get paid more than they do for, just, I won't go into the length except to say that we're having a day of action on next Tuesday, the 23rd. This is an issue that disproportionately affects seniors' mothers.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a social worker. I work with people, families, and most of the ones that come to me are aging mothers where they have maybe 3 kids, 2 of them are doing just fine. And then there's this one that never kind of got it together. And now they're facing end of life issues. Maybe they have a husband who has a lot of health problems. He's not making as much money as he once did. They don't have the energy they once had. And what is going to happen to this one that has serious mental illness? And we're not necessarily talking about people that are addicted to drugs, So I just want to put that out there. I have a link that I'm going to try to add if it's okay with people.
Please do.
It's but I just want you to, I don't know how we can save these facilities, but they are closing right and left, between developers coming in saying, oh, I like your property. How many zeros do you need to leave?
This is happening all over the state. You're right.
That's right. That's right. It's happening all over the state. And it requires state action to fix it.
And so we need somebody to take a bill and
yes, we do
to work on it.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you, because we will find somebody to author that bill, and then we will go after it.
Hene, thank you.
Thank you for saying that and telling us, and thank you for agreeing. Pat?
You're not seeing the top one, I think.
I know, I can't.
It's Carolyn. Carolyn is up next.
Yeah,
and then
sorry.
Pat.
Hi, everybody. I'm a delegate for Assembly District 15, also a worker for Healthy California Now, and I'm so grateful that someone from our team is here to talk about 770. And I don't know if any of you were at the Progressive Caucus a couple weeks ago, and I just...
May I interrupt? That's one of the topics we're coming up with.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That might be a more appropriate time.
Well, what I want to say is there's already things in the chat and already things calling people out that are not here, their names. So I'm just hoping that people will be respectful, unlike what happened the other night. And let's have less heat and more light. Thank you.
Seniors are so much better than anybody else anyway. And
Thank you for letting me
I would like to say right now, I am a follower of CNA. I just had an operation. And I was 18 days in the hospital without any food. I finally had my operation at the end of time. Every nurse there was magnificent and wonderful. I would do anything for nurses. They really made everything fine. The only bad thing about being in the hospital for 18 days and not eating food at all was when they weighed me on the way out, I had only lost 6 ounces. Go figure.
Yes, I would be pissed too.
Okay, Pat.
Hi, sorry, I'm not going to turn my video on because I'm in Visalia after a long drive and I'm already in my jammies in bed. I just want to say I put in the chat that I am already doing, this is to add on to what Susan Pfeiffer had to say. I am doing peer-to-peer calling and peer-to-peer postcarding in every flippable district in California. So I put my information in the chat. I'll put it in again. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, we're doing tailored thing. I'm working primarily with seniors and young people because that's the most effective way. The peer-to-peer work is effective. So that's another resource if the Senior Caucus and CARA wants to work with us.
Yeah.
Pat, I put a note in chat. Let's try and connect at EBoard. If not, after we get back, I'd love to hear more about.
Yeah, I'm as I say, I'm here in bed at the Comfort Inn.
Well, Susan and I are leaving early tomorrow morning, and so we'll see you on Friday. Okie doke.
Excellent.
All right. Well, listen, thank you all very much for listening to me. I hope some of you will join CARA, but I want you to know that we care about seniors, not just because we are seniors, but because we care about our family too. And we do not want our family, our children to have to give up things to keep us going. So that's a really important thing. And CARA works with young people, college and high school people. They're wonderful because they have grandparents, they have parents, and it's a good thing to do. Hello, Rick Houtman. You're the last person.
Through you, Hene, to Pat Johnstone, my quick question is, I think phoning seniors is the way to go. But when it comes to youth and the young, the best way to reach them is texting.
Oh, yes. And I think Susan can help you on that too. That is a good way. And it certainly isn't for me, but it is for my children and my grandchildren. So
the party is going to be doing an extensive texting program to young people. The problem with texting is the fundraisers have killed the option. People are not responding to texts because they're getting inundated with fundraising texts by candidates, but also you could have thousands of people to text and it's over in 10 minutes. You hit send and then you wait for a few responses, but they are going to be using it for young people.
Good. And we should always put on those texts, we're not asking you for money. We just want you to vote. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go try put things in the chat so that you'll have all the information.
All right. Thank you very much, Hene. I just had to check that you actually heard that and I wasn't muted. Next up, and that was really excellent. Thank you. That was a lot of great information. And by the way, you can save the chat on your computer. At the bottom of the chat window is 3 dots. If you click on that, you can hit save chat and it will save it to your computer so that you can look back and see all of these links and refer to them, at your leisure.
That is a lesson that I have just learned today. Thank you.
And in November, when we do our technology versus seniors, we'll probably cover that in more depth. Okay, next up we have Susie Shannon, and Susie is going to talk about the Justice for Renters Act. Susie is a longtime friend of mine, and she is on the DNC, I think she's chair of, the DNC Poverty Council. So Susie, you take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. So I know I've met a lot of you. I'm Susie Shannon. I'm also the policy director for Housing as a Human Right, as well as being on the Democratic National Committee. And I am working on the Justice for Renters Act. And what this does is allow local government to expand rent control. Many of you know that we have a partial ban on rent control right now called Costa-Hawkins. This would repeal Costa-Hawkins and allow local government to expand rent control where necessary. So it doesn't institute that policy automatically, but it does allow for your city council members and your county supervisors to take that action if they feel it's necessary, and also allows for citizen initiatives to do that as well. Rent increases disproportionately impact seniors, who are more likely to live on a fixed income, more likely to have a significant other or spouse pass away and lose that second income, and also are more likely to have depleted savings. As a result, what's happening is that seniors are also becoming unhoused. And we saw between 2017 and 2020, there was a 61% rise an increase in senior homelessness. And so we think part of this is that we're allowing these really exorbitant rent increases throughout the state of California. And we need to be able to regulate that so that people can live in their communities. There's seniors on a fixed income, there's people with disabilities, children, hotel workers, in-home supportive services workers. I'm a member of SEIU 2015, and I actually help take care of someone who is a senior citizen in my family. And so we know in areas where you have rent controlled apartments, and because of Costa-Hawkins, there is no building that's newer than 1995. So any building built in 1995 or earlier can be on rent control in certain cities that enact that, but nothing that's newer than 1995. And in LA, we were grandfathered in. So in Los Angeles, you have to live in a building that was built in 1978 or earlier in order to be on rent control. And in San Francisco, you need to live in a building that was built in 1979 or earlier in order to have rent control. And so I help a lot of seniors. I've helped a lot of seniors get into housing. My seniors who were able to get into project-based Section 8, which means that they pay a third of their income on rent, are very stable. They don't have these increases where, they can't afford the rent. However, I have other seniors who are on what's called the low income tax credit program, and their rent is going up 8 to 10% every year. So I have one senior citizen who was falling into homelessness. I was able to get her into senior housing, and her rent has gone up almost 8% every single year. And she's 1 or 2 rent increases away from having to leave that housing. So it's very, very important that this initiative pass. It will be on the November 2024 ballot. We just qualified. We're a little ahead of, we actually qualified earlier than we thought we were going to because it was so easy to get the signatures. It's good though to be early because we have a lot of organizing that we have to do. And so we've created a senior committee, and we want to invite everyone who supports this to serve on that committee to do outreach to our senior community in California. And we just hope that if you're an executive board member, you will endorse this and support it. It'll come up next year for a vote of our executive board for endorsement from the party. And we hope that, you will join the senior committee and get involved and help do outreach to senior organizations like CARA. Social Security Works has already endorsed. They were one of our early endorsers, but we'll be asking CARA and AARP and some other senior organizations that are out there to support this and help do outreach to seniors. That senior vote is very, very important, and we hope that you'll support it. And Betty Toto, I think, is on the call. I'm going to ask her to put the endorsement form in the chat if she hasn't done that already. And we hope to see you, some of you, in Visalia this weekend. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Susie? Okay, thank you very much, Susie, and thanks for coming to our meeting.
Thank you.
Next up is the SB770 and CalCare. But before we start, I want to thank Janine Roan, excuse me, our vice chair of the South, who has been working on getting this put together. What she's come up against was mentioned earlier in the meeting, is that another caucus, who shall remain nameless, had a debate between CalCare people and SB 770 people, and it got very heated and people were getting upset. People were having supplementary arguments within the chat. The only way anyone would agree to talk on this subject is if we promise to turn off the chat during this. So you will not be able to chat during this section of the meeting. I know it's absurd, but at least this way we can hear what these two things are all about. So on that note, Janine, you want to do the introduction?
Sure, and I just want to add, Mike, that you know, a lot of it was just it can be really confusing, the issue, and I think it's to just help people stay focused on what the speaker is presenting. So we do have, and we have less people. We have 2 people to talk to us today about legislation and where CalCare is at right now in the state. First is Maureen Cruz. She's an RN, former LA County Department of Health Services clinic nurse, and a former CADEM Progressive Caucus Healthcare Task Force liaison. She's a 20-year volunteer activist for single payer and a current member of Healthcare for Us, whose sole mission is single payer reform in California. Maureen, I see you, but if you could wave so that everybody can see you. Great, thank you. And then we also have Stephen Adar Vernon. He's an MA, MFT, marriage family therapist, along with an extensive clinical and management career in nonprofit public mental health services, and has been in private practice for nearly 40 years. Stephen is a board member of Healthy California Now, a statewide coalition of organizations for single payer, a co-founder of Therapists for Single Payer, and is vice chair of PNHP California. Stephen, if you could wave your hand too. Great, thank you. PHP, can you remind me what
PNHP, Physicians for a National Health Program.
Great, thank you very much. And so what we thought would be best here is if each of you took 5 minutes, and I think actually, Mike, I don't know whether there's a screen share that we can do if anyone needs it. Maureen, do you need a screen share capability? Okay.
Yes, I would like a screen share. Thank you.
Need screen share at all?
Yeah, I'll probably use it a little bit.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that into effect. And so we'll do 5 minutes with Maureen, 5 minutes for Stephen. We'll have them talk a little bit about their presentations with one another. And then, so that'll be 5 minutes for Maureen, 5 minutes for Stephen, 5 minutes to, exchange comments. And then we'll open it up for questions. And I think, Mike, what might be best is if we put, we can just do a raised hand situation and first come, first serve, but we'll wait to raise our hands until we are done with the back and forth between Maureen and Stephen. So if that sounds good with everyone, we'll go ahead and, Maureen, go ahead and get started with your screen share, and what I'll do is maybe give everyone, the both of you, a 30-second heads up when we're coming up on your 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think I'm unmuted. Yes? Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. Hello, everyone. As Janine mentioned, I'm with Healthcare for Us, and we are all volunteers. We have no paid staff, and our one mission is single payer enactment and implementation in the state of California. And CalCare is back. It was AB 1400. It is currently 1690, which is a spot bill. A spot bill does not mean it's empty. There is language in the spot bill that is basically AB 1400, but it is a flexible bill because we're still waiting for some adjustments on the language after CNA, the bill's authors, who've been authoring bills for the last 20 years. Their authors are getting input from various stakeholders. So there are basically 7 principles of CalCare. It's kind of the, boilerplate, what we expect from single payer, universal coverage, single public program, fully comprehensive benefits, freedom to choose your care provider, free at point of service, just transition, patient care based on patient needs. And there are a few other really important elements. And one is the financing of healthcare facilities that have been really disadvantaged, for instance, urban healthcare facilities and also rural healthcare facilities, because they have been disadvantaged over the years by not getting appropriate funding. In the state of California, I believe it's about 28% of rural hospitals are at risk of going bankrupt. So it's a serious situation and we really cannot wait. And so that's one of the reasons that on the front burner for us is SB 770, because we see it as very, very dangerous to the enactment of CalCare. These are the reasons that the California nurses, who are the authors of CalCare, have opposed SB 770, and that is that the Healthy California for All Governor's Commission has already spent 2.5 years going over the elements of reform, and SB 770 is redundant and unnecessary. It's another commission appointed by the same people talking about the same issues that we've been talking about for 20 years. The June 1st report deadline is past the deadline for CalCare to pass the Assembly. We find that concerning because SB 770 discussions have the potential of going on for months, if not years, which could obstruct the passage of CalCare. CalCare needs the full support from the supermajority legislators in order to pass, because we have to get through the governor as well. And SB 770 gives legislators the excuse to wait for the waiver discussion to conclude under the misconception that these discussions are necessary and helpful to single payer, which they are not. And fourth, informal discussions mandated in 770 have no legal status. Waivers cannot be obtained without a specific set of elements defined in a policy bill that has passed the state legislature and is codified into law. Now, our organization, we took a look at SB 770 as soon as it came out, before the nurses actually published any opinion on it. And we became very, very concerned. That this actually has a loophole in it to allow insurance industry and other intermediaries to continue within the system, because SB 770 is not a single payer policy bill, and it's not complementary. It's a unified financing bill. The title of SB 770 is Unified Healthcare Financing System. It's a study bill for informal discussions based on the findings of the Governor's Commission, but the Governor's Commission did not discuss single payer. It discussed unified financing systems, which is a umbrella term which could include single payer, but doesn't have to, and can allow for multi-payer intermediaries. It leaves room for private for-profit insurance and intermediate administrative entities, something like Medicare Advantage. So if we're concerned about Medicare Advantage on the federal level, we should be concerned about having intermediaries in a multi-payer system in the state. 770 establishes a politically appointed waiver development group. There will be millions of dollars spent for this group to have conversations about waivers. And no legislation is needed to communicate with federal health and human services about waivers. This can be done anytime. In May 2021, Healthy California Now posted a commentary stating that legislation was not needed at this time and also that legislation is not needed for waiver discussions. We agree on that second part. 770 provides.
We're at 5 minutes, so, but
Oh, okay.
If you can wrap up, and then of
Sure,
course.
I will wrap it up. Basically, CalCare, we want people to support CalCare. It's the bill that is sitting there. It's a fully comprehensive single payer bill, and we would like to get full support from single payer supporters for CalCare and not to be divided or diverted away from that. And if you go to our website, hc4us.org, there are many ways to get involved. And the best way to get single payer is to support single payer legislation and make sure it gets enacted by the legislature. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen. Stephen, are you able to switch over? I'm going to give Mike a second to be able to switch over to the share screen.
No, I don't need any time at all. He can just do.
Well, there you go.
Okay, I can bring it up whenever I want to because I don't want to use it right now. I will
terrific.
Okay, yeah. Great. So yeah, hi, I'm Stephen Vernon. I am with Healthy California now. And yes, we are the promoters, sponsors of 770, SB 770. Most of what you just heard is inaccurate. We first of all feel like they are very complementary bills between single payer, CalCare, and this one particular piece that does need to be addressed in terms of dealing with the federal government to get waivers. The accusation or comment that this has already been done by the commission is actually, again, incorrect. The commission and the lawyers they hired, the legal firm they hired to review the waivers, did a very good job of looking at all the regulatory possibilities, but then ended up saying at least 4 different times in the report that what the next step is to engage the federal government on talking about waivers. I can show that on screen sharing in momentarily if need be, but that is the case. It's in the report 4 different times that we know. Let's gain a better understanding of the waiver process, and trying not to be too defensive. That was more of an anti-770 presentation than a CalCare presentation. We are very supportive of CalCare. We will support 1690, presumably, if it, which it probably will be quite like 1400, but it'd be nice to see when we see an entire bill. Healthy California Now, Therapists for Single Payer, Physicians for National Health Program California are all very likely to endorse it. Just need to see it entirely. I also wanted to say that within the last 10 years or so, I've had several hospitalizations for back surgery, for gallbladder removal. At the beginning of the pandemic, excuse me, I was hospitalized for 5 days for what turned out to be sepsis. You know what? And I love nurses too. And I also love that all that was under Medicare. I was on traditional Medicare and with a supplement, and the surgery itself, for example, was $60,000, and I paid $0 out of pocket. And that's what we all want to be bringing to all of California, certainly, and all of the country. And we consider SB 770 a necessary piece of that. Back when Newsom was, of course, originally running for governor, the nurses supported him because he said he would support single payer. Of course, he backed off from that and created this commission, which did spend 2.5 years on developing an approach to what they call unified financing. In this movement, I think we all know that, we've had these arguments. Do we call it single payer? Do we call it Medicare for all? Do we call it improved Medicare for all? Do we call it, guaranteed health care for all? They're all accurate. And unified financing is a little bit more, ambivalent, but that's the word that the commission used. Bunch of politicians for sure. But it's our job to take that commission's report, which in general, which is a lot of what the 770 shows, it takes the language from that commission, describes a single payer healthcare bill. And it's our job to make sure that that's what it continues to be, that it doesn't get flaked off. And this conflict that we're having does not help that. We need to be united and working together to make sure that these waivers are done appropriately, that we understand the waivers better and how to go about them. And that, CalCare and whatever version, whenever it does pass, which, there's a lot of, unfortunately, probably accurate concern that there isn't enough support within the legislature for it to be passing next year. And we fully expect that, 770 will get an unfair share of the blame for that, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know, how much time do I have left?
You've got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So let me see if I can quickly share the screen. If I can find that document. Yeah, there it is. Okay. One of the things it says on page 78 of the report is, in order to navigate issues related to federal funding and permissions, an iterative process is likely to be needed in which California seeks further clarity with federal engagement. It's followed by a chart. I don't know if you can read this part. You're seeing this, right? Yeah, you're seeing it. It says obtain federal permissions and federal funding. And it says gain a clear understanding of what is specified and allowable under existing law and waiver authority. Continuing on that page, it says engagement with federal authorities will bring into focus considerations and trade-offs that will influence the ultimate design, not the already passed bill, but the ultimate design will influence the ultimate design of unified financing in California. And then on page 81, it shows table 7 stages on California's path to unified financing. And yes, we would love to have it be single payer, but you got to work with what you're given. The first step under federal permission is gain a clear understanding of what is specified and allowable under existing law. This is the opportunity that the commission gave us, and we're trying to move forward on it and increase the support, which we have. There's a lot of more labor unions and other coalitions that are supporting this bill. So I'm probably gone a few seconds over, but thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so I think now we can just have a very general back and forth. I'm hoping that works, for the next, maybe until about 20 after, and then we can do our Q&A. Chair, does that sound like a good framework? Okay.
Who are you asking?
Yeah, I was asking you, Chair.
Oh, I think it's up to our
Chair.
Okay.
So, okay, so Maureen, if you want to,
Sure, I would like to comment. Sure. The Governor's Healthy California for All Commission was not a mandate. It was a report on a series of studies about studying what was needed in the state of California. Unified financing is not single payer. The Governor's Commission did not discuss single payer. They only discussed, in general terms, unified financing. In order to have a single payer system or to have reform under the Affordable Care Act, you need a 1332 waiver. And the 1332 waiver only has 4 requirements. You have to provide access to health coverage that is at least as comprehensive as in the Affordable Care Act, that it has to be as affordable as in the Affordable Care Act. It has to provide as much coverage as the residents as the Affordable Care Act, and it may not increase the federal deficit. And the way that a state applies, and I encourage you all to go to CMS State's Guide to 1332 waivers. Please go there and you will see the steps that are necessary. Cannot apply for a waiver without legislation. Having a conversation about waivers doesn't make any sense unless you have a policy bill. The analogy that I would use is asking for information about what you can have for a waiver without having an exact reform bill in place is like going to a contractor and asking him if you can get all of the regulations, the permits you need, if you can get the equipment that you need, if you can get the materials that you need, and how much will it cost? And the contractor asks you, well, what are you building? An apartment building, a business building, a single family home? You say, well, I don't know, but can you, tell us all about it? Okay. You cannot, you need to have a policy bill. CalCare is a fully fleshed 100% single payer policy bill, and it has everything in place. I'd like to ask Steve Vernon, what advantage does 770 give? What is a conversation about waivers that has no legal bearing that the authors of CalCare and plenty of other of us single payer folks see as really divisive and diversionary? Can you please tell me how having these conversations about waivers that will delay CalCare, how that is going to help single payer, how that's going to help CalCare, since you're for CalCare?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, there's a lot of inaccuracies in your statement, Maureen. There are many, many more than 1332 waivers. There's 1115 waivers.
Yes,
There's
yes, I
1150
know.
waivers. There's many, many more waivers. And which is it? Are we saying the commission report has already done this work, or the commission report is just not mandated and it doesn't really matter? Choose one, but not both. The point is that there is, as the commission report says, many paths that need to be addressed in terms of how to deal with waivers, and to have these conversations to help develop, as we're moving forward in developing a bill, which is not fully fleshed at this point. It is one sentence, and it's a lovely sentence about the intent of single payer, and we presume it's going to be a lot like 1400. That's great, but it's not a fully fleshed bill. And we think that this conversation not only will inform the development of that bill as we go along, but will also expand the conversations to more and more people that will find out more about what single payer really does and how it really is going to help people. Right now, single people go, far too many people in, unfortunately, the seats that matter, legislative and regulatory, whatever, just close their ears to single payer. And it's our job to use whatever we can, whether it be unified financing, improve Medicare for all, or whatever. It's our job to open those ears.
So I have another question based on what you just said.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, you have a question? Okay.
This is not a attack 770 and
No, I have a question.
defensive.
I have a question.
Why don't you answer some of my implied questions? Like, is there really a bill there? How is talking to federal government people
Hene
about
Kelly
a
has
very
a question.
confusing issue?
Hene
Not
Kelly has a
helpful.
question.
I
Hene Kelly
would-
has a question.
Okay.
We're not taking questions from the members yet. We're going to go for another 5 minutes with their discussion, and then we'll turn it over to membership questions.
Okay. Here's my
Is
question
it possible to
about.
let Stephen speak for a minute? Because Maureen, you spoke for like 5 minutes.
Oh, sure.
Please
Stephen
let
was trying to
Stephen
speak.
Excuse me.
What a shit show.
Excuse me. I thought, I'm sorry if people are confused. I thought I outlined it. That there were 3 sections: their presentations, their discussion, and then we'll have Q&A. And what I just said is we'll go until 8:20, and then we'll have a Q&A.
Right. And I mean, I really understand, because I've certainly had the experience myself, including with the governor's commission, is this really just delay and kill single payer? Because that's what's happened over and over again. So I understand that kind of reaction to whenever somebody's actually trying to put forward something that they claim is, moving forward. We think it is. We who have collectively hundreds of years of supporting and fighting for single payer, have looked at this think this is a good idea. I understand that CNA, CalCare, their allies such as yourself, Marine Healthcare for Us, etc., don't buy that. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to tell people what I think is the truth, and how we really need to move forward in getting single payer. And yeah, I would love to convince you and CNA eventually, and that's what we need. We need the rather than having such a meet. You know, when we were evolving 770, CalCare or CNA was aware of it. We made several outreaches to them, none of which were responded to. They were part of the Healthy California Now affiliates meetings in which it was discussed. So we put this bill out that we'd already discussed a bit. And then, you know, and I think it's a very smart bill and a very aware bill. What we weren't smart about, and I'm sorry, we didn't expect this kind of negative, you know, oppositional reaction. And I'm sorry that it's happening. It's very, you know, very depressing, actually.
Well, you know, CalCare has to be through its House of Origin by June 1st. It has to be complete.
I've asked you a question.
What was the question?
How is CalCare? How are you characterizing a one-sentence bill as a total bill?
Because it's not a one-sentence bill. It actually is AB 1400. But in order to do a spot bill, you cannot put the language in. We keep the language out until it's ready to be introduced because there are some amendments being made to the language. So, you know, I mean, you are on the board of Healthy California Now, which did not endorse AB 1400 until 2 weeks before the assembly vote. It didn't happen.
As did Therapists for Single Payer and Physicians for National Health Program.
I'm sorry, what?
All the three major organizations that I'm involved with did endorse CalCare.
Right, but we're talking about.
If you want to continue to be, you know, adversarial, I'll have to respond that way. But I don't want to be adversarial.
No, my question is, you are representing Healthy California Now, which wrote SB 770, or at least one of your members, I believe your leadership, Michael Leidy, and also NUHW are taking the credit for actually writing the bill. And Healthy California Now did not endorse AB 1400 CalCare the first time around, and also ran a waiver campaign, which we felt was, you know, really distracting away from the bill. It didn't do anything for the bill. And the other thing is CalCare needs to be finished before the first report of this waiver discussion group. Now, the waiver discussion group will, if it passes, will begin end of January, but then has to have a first report by June 1st, or have a report with quarterly reports. And I'm curious, are those quarterly reports between January and June?
Yeah, I think there's some work that needs to be done on the bill in terms of that language for sure.
Well, no, I just want to know, are there supposed to be quarterly reports between?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That particular, you know, phrasing, I'm not sure where it came from. I think you're right that, yeah, we could have a report in March or April. And I think, you know, there should be some sort of reporting back on the process. As far as the 5 months or 5 or 6 months are concerned, first of all, we want to get this bill passed and start working on it, you know, and developing it before the actual January start date. Again, the more collaboration we have on that, the better. And again, you know, either it's going to delay it until 2028, which is another bogus statement that, you know, CNA has made, or it's going to be done in 5 months. 2028 is too long, which isn't even relevant, and 5 months is too short. I agree, 5 months isn't much, but you know what? It's better than nothing. We're starting to talk to people. We're going to have a conversation. Would there be a better timeline on it? Yeah, but this is the timeline we have. This is this is as the days go by.
Well,
excuse me, this is Mike. This is Mike. May I interrupt? Mm-hmm. What our intention was for this to be just what you said, a conversation. It's turned into an argument, and we're not learning anything from arguing. Could you please give us information without arguing, so that we know what both of you are about and what both of your organizations are about?
I understand totally, Michael, and I think I was trying to do that. But again, when the major part of the other presentation is an attack on 770, and the questions coming back at me, I feel like it's appropriate to respond to them.
Okay, well, let's hope
And I
that-
think I've outlined what 770 is. It's working on the waivers, working on talking to people.
Michael, we have hit the 8:20 mark, so I think we're ready for any Q&A that we have. If people want to raise their virtual hands, I see Hene has her hand up, and then Pat. Hene, can you go ahead?
Sure. You know, I do have a question. Why can't people work together? But what I'm going to tell you is that CARA will work on the bill that CNA wants. It will be a priority bill too. And the bill that is already there on waivers will be is our priority bill. Sometimes it takes 2 years of a session to get your bill through. And Weiner decided that he better start working on it in the first year. So that's the only thing I have to say. And my question is, how do we get people to work together?
Okay, are you posing that to one or the other? I think if we can take, I
don't think there's an answer with these two people, but I'm asking the question.
Does anyone, do either of you want to answer that, or should we move on? Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
I think when you have a single payer bill, which is reputedly the best single payer bill we've seen ever in the state of California, that we get fully behind it. And we don't engage in any diversionary tactics away from it, that we look at that bill and we get on board right now. And you can go to our website, hc4us.org, and find out how to get involved. You can also read CalCare, the entire bill. You can read AB770, the entire bill. AB770 is unified financing, and it's a conversation bill. It's not a policy bill. CalCare is a policy bill, and it is single payer, and it is ready to be enacted. It includes the waivers, 1332, and any other waivers that are necessary can be folded into the 1332 waiver process.
Okay.
So I think the way we work together is we say we are single payer universal healthcare activists. Let's work for single payer, and let's do that now.
Okay,
I absolutely agree.
Okay, so
that doesn't mean that 770 is indeed part of single payer.
So we'll keep to each question to 30 seconds and then do 30-second responses. Go ahead, Pat, just so we can fit more people in. Pat Johnson.
Well, I'm speaking to you as a person who lost her husband to a broken healthcare system, who lost him prematurely. I've been working on single payer for many, many years. I've seen so many bills come and go and then fail. So I would like to ask each presenter to tell me why these two bills are or are not compatible.
Well, I think you've heard a lot of why Maureen thinks they're not compatible. We think they're compatible because it's taking a piece of what the work needs to be done in order to get to single payer. The only thing that says it's not compatible is the opposition that's saying it's not compatible. We think they are very much part of the same thing. Again, within the context of knowing that this movement is going on for so long, and every little thing that isn't exactly single payer is immediately appropriately looked at with suspicion. But this is not a suspicious bill. This is a single payer bill developed by people that have hundreds of collective years working for single payer.
We have time. Maureen, do you want to respond?
Yes. AB770 is, by its very title and by when you read through all the provisions in the 5 pages of it, it is a unified financing bill. It is not single payer. It does not say single payer, and it is not a policy bill. It's a bill about conversations about a waiver, which are not needed.
Okay, let's move on. Rick, do you want to say your question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the gentleman, is this the type of forum that you were hoping for tonight, where chat is cut off so none of us can even quietly, silently express ourselves? If I have to, I would never attend another meeting like this ever again. I'm appalled, and it's more directed to the chair of the caucus and the other officers to keep our hands tied behind our backs for the past half hour or 40 minutes is a really bad use of time, especially for progressives and Democrats.
Okay, so before, I'd like to say that it was requested that we do this at the last minute. So I think it is a backlash from the Progressive Caucus, which had a very busy chat and was very distracting. So we leaned towards going ahead and agreeing to that in order to have the discussion. It's not really a debate. We wanted to have a discussion. So Stephen or Maureen, do you want to address that?
I just concur.
About the chat, I am a firm believer in having chats open all the time. It was not my request.
No, it was mine. It was mine because exactly what Janine is saying. I think that people are coming to this, want people to come to this, to listen to the people that are talking. There's lots of opportunities to discuss afterwards or during. Keep notes, folks. Whatever. I know that I was at that.
Can you open the chat now?
This is Mike. The chat is open, and we are out of time for this section of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, I'm sorry. I thought we had until 8:30, Mike.
Janine, I would like to make one last comment that unified financing is not single payer. Unified financing allows for intermediaries like insurance companies, like HMOs, like ACOs to collect money from the government, control access to healthcare, continue a network system, continue to profit. That's what's included in unified financing systems. Those are all possibilities. Single payer, the one thing you can say about single payer for absolute certain is it removes the insurance companies, it removes intermediaries. The government pays directly the providers. There's no intermediary profit-taking group that is controlling care and extracting funds away from our delivery of our care. So to me, the main thing, single payer removes insurance. It means the government pays the providers directly. Unified financing leaves space to continue what we have now, which is insurance companies staying in the system and, receiving our tax dollars from the government, but then once again, controlling access to care.
I'd like to have Stephen respond to that, and then we can take one more question, I think, and then we have to.
Thank you.
I don't think we have time for one more question.
Go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry. I'm saying we don't really have time for one more question.
Well, I do think that Stephen should be given the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that'll be.
I think that we've, this point about unified financing has been made over and over. And to repeat it seems somewhat a waste of our time. People believe one thing, people believe other things. It is our job. Absolutely. Unified financing is not as definitive a term as single payer. Like I said, there's been lots of arguments whether it's single payer, improved Medicare for all, etc. We have been given this word to use and to make sure in our process, again, as all of us have been working so hard for single payer, that in the process of moving this forward, rather than just throwing it on the shelf and ignoring it, use this tool of the commissioner's report, of the commission's report, that really describes single payer Yes, there are terms in there that we would prefer better used, but it's a single payer program. It's up to us to continue to make sure that's what it is. Thank you.
It's not.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to, Michael, do you want to introduce our next guest? Thank you so much for coming, both of you. This was something where we had our speakers kind of fall out of place at the last minute, and both Maureen and Stephen kind of stepped up and agreed to come on today. So I really, really appreciate them doing that. Is there, and if you could both put in the chat how anyone can continue the conversation, if they'd like to, that would be great. And I'd like to, Mike, if it's okay, I'd like to introduce the director. I go move on.
Right.
Okay.
And keep in mind that we really only have 15 minutes left of the meeting.
Okay. So Susan Damaros, can you raise your hand so we can see you? I'm not seeing Susan.
Yeah, she's there. She's there.
Hi,
Okay.
Janine. I'm here. Yes.
Oh,
Hello.
terrific. Thank you. Hi, Susan. I'll
Hi.
let you introduce yourself. I mean, you're the director of the Department of Aging, and you're very busy, and we really appreciate you coming today. And we're wondering if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the department and what they do, and anything that you might want to fill us in on.
Great. Yes. Thank you. Hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm so impressed you're going strong at 8:30 at your meeting. So thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing and talking about, and for gathering and for advocating. I'm Susan DeMorris. I serve in Governor Newsom's administration as his director of the Department of Aging. I've had this role now for just about 2 years. I previously led public policy advocacy for the National Alzheimer's Association. I was headquartered in Sacramento as their lobbyist, and I worked in their Western states. So my background is in aging, health policy, and long-term care. And it's a wonderful privilege to have this role and to serve in this administration. I had prepared some slides. Given that we have 15 minutes, is that your preference that I move quickly through those? I'm not able to share them at my end, so I can get started. I don't know, Janine, if that's something
I think you were just made a co-host, so you should.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have sharing privileges.
Okay, wonderful. I'll just, I thought, it might be late and you might appreciate, there we go. Great. Just having something to look at after being on Zoom for a while. So I just wanted to share, I've worked in the aging field for nearly 30 years, and there has never been a time like now with this administration and this governor. This is something that Governor Newsom campaigned on his first time, and he honored his commitment to develop a master plan for aging once he was elected, and he got to work on that immediately. And the reasons for that is he has shared some of his own personal family experience caring for his father alongside his sister. And he also is well aware of the demographics in our state. So you can see from this slide that we're not slowly adding, we're quickly adding older adults, and approaching a point by 2030 where we'll have, almost 11 million people 60 and older, roughly the size of the entire state of Michigan. So this is something that is definitely not, it's quite a phenomenon that we're addressing at the state level. Other statistics that might be of interest to you is that this is the first time in our state where the under 18 and 18 to 64 populations are in decline. At the same time that the 65 plus population is really starting to take off. Right about now on this bar chart, you can see that. This is just to give you a sense of where the growth is happening in our in regions around the country, or around the state rather, but you know, to show that oops, sorry about that. I'm going to go back one. If you think about other things happening in our state, you know, maybe you know, children, school age policies, what have you, you know, where do you see percentage increases like this in the 600 percentile, 500 percentile, 400 percentile? So we're really trying to sound the alarm that this is something that we've never, ever experienced in our state. And it's not in the distant future, it's happening today. And this also gives a sense, this group is from all over the state, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it also gives you a sense of where, you know, it shows where the growth areas are too. And in many cases, these are the more affordable areas of our state. So the governor issued an executive order to establish a master plan for aging that was released officially in January of 2021. And we have 5 bold goals. This is our blueprint for the next 10 years. We're very proud that we started out with housing as the #1 goal. And I think if you know, traditionally, when people talk about aging in America, they really focus almost exclusively on healthcare. So it's really important in our state that we took a very broad view, and we're looking at housing, healthcare, quality of life, including inclusion, equity, loneliness, and isolation, caregiving. So whether that's as a family caregiver, whether you're a spouse, partner, adult child, parent, or a paid direct care staff member who's providing hands-on direct care. And then affording aging is something that we're all grappling with, whether it's the cost of housing, healthcare, utilities, and more. So we're very proud that we started this movement. Now more than 23 states across the country have master plans for aging, and the U.S. Senate has even introduced a national master plan for aging. And this all flows out of California's work that we started just, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. We want to be sure that this is not a plan that sits on the shelf. I'm sure you've all worked on, seen, reviewed, read plans on every topic under the sun. And this is a very dynamic living document. It's a 10-year blueprint, so we update it every year. We provide a report to the legislature every year. And on the far right of your screen, you'll see that we track every initiative online. So the public, anyone who has a question, can track our progress on every initiative in real time. This has translated to major investments. The quote, if you don't prepare, well, I can't think of it. A failure to plan is a plan to fail. That's it. That's what I was thinking of. You know, we can directly track more than $9 billion of new investments to this plan. And I can promise you that this would not have happened in 2019, 2018, 2017 without a plan to guide the legislature and the administration. You know, of interest to you, we've eliminated the Medi-Cal asset test, so more people can now qualify for Medi-Cal even if they own a home or other assets. We've expanded Medi-Cal coverage to all undocumented Californians age 50 and older. We've established a new Office of Medicare Innovation and Integration, the only state in the country that is taking ownership over Medicare, which is typically reserved for the federal government. We're working on affordable housing production, navigation, and rental assistance, and then well over $1 billion in workforce investments. We talk about the master plan being a whole of government approach. Of course, we work with our federal partners, housing, health, Social Security. We work with the cabinet work group. The governor has a cabinet of 12 or so secretaries: housing, transportation, natural resources, healthcare. And the bulk of the work is within the Health and Human Services Agency. So Medi-Cal, social services, aging, Department of Rehabilitation. And then where the real work happens is at the county and city level with our county supervisors and city councils. To that end, we have been funding grants to support local community planning. Many of you may be involved in these. You can check locally. We've awarded 15 grants to date, over $3 million in awards, and we will be putting out an RFA later this month for another $1 million in awards. This is to get communities organized around these issues and working to meet local needs. One of the first things we did is we joined the AARP Age Friendly Network. At the time, there were only a handful of states that were part of that network. And then out of that grew a lot of local planning efforts. So you can see listed here, I think the gold standard is the County of Ventura has their own master plan for aging. San Diego and Los Angeles have done similarly. And then almost 30 out of 58 counties have some level of planning underway. You asked about areas of momentum and advocacy opportunities. I would just share that these are the big, we have a few major things underway. Rent, older adults are the fastest growing demographic of unhoused homeless individuals in our state, the 50+ population. We're focused on rental assistance for older adults so we can prevent homelessness, so people can retain their housing. Often it translates to just $200 or $300 a month makes the difference of keeping someone housed. The next initiative that we're working on is modeled on Washington State, but how can there be a benefit for home care for people who don't yet qualify for Medi-Cal, but are paying for everything out of pocket? So how do we meet the needs of the missing middle or the forgotten middle? And then we've been putting a lot of attention on older adult behavioral health coming out of the COVID pandemic, loneliness, isolation, people who are precariously housed financially, with the cost of living and recession, a lot of stress and distress among older adults. And we just received $50 million in new funding as of July 1st. And then last, I wanted to note we're conducting California's first ever statewide older adult survey. Maybe some of you received that at your homes. And when I stop talking, I'll put in the chat the link if you'd like to take it. It's open to everyone. It's a blind survey, and we can start comparing county by county, regions of the state. We can carve out different age brackets, ethnicities to see how Californians are faring right now. All of our work is driven by stakeholders, consumers, and the public. We had a huge day of action in the fall. Over 500 people attended in person and another 500 joined online. And that's how we determine what our priorities are for the coming year. And then last, I just wanted to leave you, our department provides an array of services. All of them are free. We're in every single county in the state. And this is the number that you can use. You can share it with your friends, neighbors, family members. If anyone ever has a question about aging in California, direct them to this number at the top of the slide, and we can take it from there. If they call, it'll connect them to their local area agency on aging. And that was a whirlwind. Now, if there is time, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. And if we're out of time, I understand that too.
No, we can take some questions. Raise your hand. Carol, your hand's up.
Oh, hi there. So are you in the process of formulating how to subsidize home care for people who don't qualify for Medi-Cal? Is that already in place?
Yes, that is something that we are working on. We conducted a huge actuarial study to consider the cost of providing such a benefit. And the state insurance commissioner has been leading a task force that will be making some recommendations by the end of this year. We'll take all of that data and start working towards solutions to help people defray the cost of home care.
Thank you.
Susie, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I do. So first of all, I do want to.
Oh, you muted yourself, Susie, by accident.
Oh, first of all, I just want to say getting rid of the Medi-Cal asset test is so important, and it's going to be so helpful to lots of people who are really struggling with health problems and not having to like spend down their savings, which is what's been happening. I think is going to be really great. I just want to note that I know that you put rental assistance as one of the things, that's very important in terms of keeping seniors housed. I would just like to add, or maybe just ask if there are plans to also add rent control to that. I don't know if you heard what I said earlier, but we have a lot of seniors who are in senior housing who are part of the low income tax credit program, but their rent is still continuing to go up. And their rent is initially adjusted to the area median income. So the more luxury housing that goes up and the higher the area median goes up, the higher their rent is going up. And we're seeing 8 to 9%, sometimes 10% increases in rent for low income seniors who qualified for this low income tax credit program, who are now basically, are going like 1 or 2 rent increases away from leaving. And we've been talking about this nationally. We've been talking about this in California, but we think it's really going to be a crisis, and that a lot of seniors are going to end up on the street who really felt like the low income tax credit program could work for them. But because they're on a fixed income and older, it's very hard for them to make those rent increases. So I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit. And if you would add rent control to your list of things that, your department would support, in terms of expanding the rent control program.
Susie, thank you for that. And I mentioned only the rental assistance as a priority that's been lifted, but that's not the only priority we're working on. And many of the tenant protections that existed throughout the pandemic have now expired, and we're seeing exactly what you described, that rents had been held down, and now owners are catching up, and we're seeing those increases, even in low income housing and affordable housing. So that is part of our housing portfolio. We also are looking at a lot of the discriminatory practices with evictions, where older adults are being discriminated against and they don't know their rights. So it's the cost of housing, but it's also protecting their rights, as well as developing more housing and looking at creative solutions like ADUs and home sharing and other opportunities to bring down the cost of housing. So we have a full continuum, and absolutely tenant protections is part of it.
Okay, Howard, you are next, followed by Judith, followed by Yolanda, and we'll have to call Yolanda the last questioner, because we are now over time. But that, as long as no one tells on us, that's okay. So Howard, briefly, your question.
Okay, briefly, my question is this. I'm still working. I only worked 50 years so far, and I work next to a senior center, which helps keep me sane, because I really enjoy being with people my age. So I'd like to know how your office deals with the issues of senior centers, which I think are fantastic.
Howard, I'm so happy to hear that. We don't have enough senior centers. And, I think it was in the 1980s is the last time there was a bond for senior centers. So there has not been investment in that. Going back to the slides I showed about the, explosive growth of this population, if, we don't want to pit one age group against another, but if we were looking at those numbers, we'd be building for children, we'd be building schools and portable, classrooms. All of that would be coming up from the ground, and we're not seeing the commensurate investment. So senior centers typically are funded by city government, sometimes by county government. There aren't any state senior centers. So those are locally funded. And that's something where, you know, again, the last big investment was a bond act in the 80s. So some local jurisdictions have more resources and have been able to make those investments, or they've found funding sources locally.
Okay, Judith?
Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to ask the question. I'm asking questions pertaining to seniors that own their own home, but a lot. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Cut out for a moment, but we hear you now.
Okay. They were impacted by the awful Wall Street 2008, 2009, 10, that area. And this housing crisis created a problem for them where many of them had to refi. And now they're some of them are in, what do you call that? Oh gosh. When they refi it, they didn't have the fixed rate. They're now variables. And every time that the feds go up, their payments go up. Is there anything being done in your program for those kind of seniors that were impacted by the 2008, 9, and 10, I believe, housing crisis that was caused by Wall Street? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I'll have to follow up on that. That's not something I'm familiar with, but I have heard that about rising interest rates and that crowding people out too. But I'm not as familiar with that. I would have to research it a bit and get back to you.
Is there any way that we can get, I need to get in touch with you so you can answer that question, please.
I just put my email in the chat if we run out of time or if you have follow-up questions after tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Yolanda.
Good evening. Wonderful presentation. I was concerned about food insecurity. A number of our seniors were on EBT during the pandemic, and then then I guess about June or July was cut in half or more, and so they did not consider the fact that inflation has made food skyrocket. Are you guys addressing that issue? Because people have to make different choices now and supplement their eating with going to either their union to get a basket of food or whatever. Can you help us with that?
Mm-hmm. Yolanda, you are so right, and we're really concerned. The term we use is the nutrition cliff. There was a lot of money pumped into the system during COVID that's starting to expire, and that sort of inflated some of the nutrition support programs. And we're really concerned about what's on the near horizon when all of those temporary streams expire. We have more people and the cost of food is higher, and these temporary infusions are going away. So it's sort of a triple threat that we're really concerned about. This governor and this legislature have increased funding for senior nutrition, home delivered meals, congregate meals in senior centers, CalFresh benefits, farmers markets, a whole array of services. But that's something you could certainly use your advocacy on. That's something that touches everyone.
Okay, thank you. I know I said that Yolanda would be the last word, but there's two people with their hands up that I have a lot of respect for, one of which was a speaker tonight. So what I'm going to ask is that Susie ask her brief question, the chef ask his brief question, and nobody else raise your hand so that I don't have to tell you no. So go ahead, Susie.
That was actually an accident. I already asked my question.
Okay, well, that helps. Chef? Lost me, disappeared.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been waiting all night. I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to say that I feel that our senior, and I'm a senior too, and I'm a member of this caucus. I feel that our seniors get a raw deal. And as chair of the Veterans Caucus, we feel that too. So come November, we're going to support, we're going to salute the senior caucus. We're going to make them feel at home. We're going to let them know that if nobody else loves them, we do. And I'll be making further announcements about that later. And to a few of you who were eating while the meeting was going on, you need to try my creme brulee for dessert, but we'll work on that later. So thank you, seniors. Thank you. I love you dearly.
Thank you, Chef. A chef to the end. And we feel the same way about you and the veterans. In fact, we've already talked about having a joint meeting sometime in the near future. So on that note, I think we're ready to wrap up. And I think we can do it by 9 o'clock. I see Janine has something she would like to say as a wrap up, I think.
I just wanted to thank Susan. We could have probably had you on for much longer Q&A, and I hope we can stay in touch for more conversation.
Absolutely. I'm honored to join you. I'll join again. And, you know, when you're talking to your elected officials, you know, please thank them for their support of the master plan for aging and older adults. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but there's never been more done than has happened in the last several years. So momentum is shifting.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Janine. And thank you, everybody. I don't know, this is the wrap up, and I don't know what made me think of it. Maybe you do. When I was little, my father used to watch the Friday night fights. And, you know, it was one of the few times I got to spend with my father. And for some reason, I'm thinking of that tonight. I can't imagine why. In any case, I think that when people do get the way that they get, it actually makes it more interesting. You can hear what they're thinking. You can decide who's rational and who's reasonable, and you can filter it as you need to know, you know, what's going on in the topic. So, you know, I think that it was actually wasn't necessarily a good thing that happened, but I think it was just fine. The next time we meet will be during the lunch hour in Visalia. Look for the sign that says where we're going to meet. It'll be very casual. No, well, we'll be, you know, people come up with their own topics for conversation, just get to know each other a little better and see what we actually look like in flesh and blood. That will be right after the general session on Saturday in Visalia. And then after that, we will have a meeting at some point to try to get our bylaws done so that we can be recertified. And we will be asking you to join a brief meeting to ratify those bylaws when they're ready. And then after that will be the November convention. So once again, thank you all. It was a great pleasure to have you here. I'm really glad we had a little bit over 50 people. And, you know, I couldn't be happier. And I think this was a really good meeting.